Welcome back, everybody. Today we're going to be going over how to color grade in Final Cut Pro, and this is going to be sort of a beginner's tutorial. So now that we have our Final Cut Pro app open, I've imported some clips here that have different color samples and that we can look at. I'm going to start moving some of them into our timeline. So here we have 4 different clips that we're going to be looking at. And so what we want to do is we're going to remove this section of the screen to make room for the other windows here. So I'm just going to click on this button to remove it. And then we're going to come to view right here and drop down, and we're going to want to look at our video scopes, or you can push Command 7. We're actually going to want a waveform of the RGB overlays, and that's going to be what this is right here. And this is a graph representation of the colors used in this image on the right side. So we're going to come down and select the file in our timeline, and then come up here to the diamond here, which is the color options. We're actually going to want to work with the color wheels. So we're going to come up here to settings, and under color correction, instead of color board, we're going to do color wheels. And that's this screen right here. I'm going to close out. And as you can see, there's a global wheel, a shadows wheel, a highlights wheel, and a midtones wheel. And then below that, we have temperature, which is going to affect our white balance, tint, which will move the color in the direction of green or magenta. So I'm going to bring this down a bit so we can fit more of it onto our screen. And so, as you look at this image, you can see that red is popping out on the top, and the blues are kind of stuck down here at the bottom. That's going to be a representation of the color balance. And ideally we want the reds, the greens, and the blues. You see the greens in here. We want them all to be sort of in the same space. So we're going to come over here to our shadows, and there's a lot of blue in the shadows. So we're going to pull away from the blue color here towards sort of a reddish green. You'll see that pull up. And I pulled way up on top of the reds and separated the greens. Again, we want to have these all in the same line. So I've actually made it worse. So we're going to undo that, bring some blue back in, and it's going to bring that blue down to the red and the green. And you can see they're actually lining up pretty well now. We've got this solid white line where the red, the green, and the blue are all in the same area. So with the shadows, we can pull the saturation of this up and down. And so we want the bottom of our graph to be near 0, not below it. So if we pull the shadows up all the way, you can see it moves away from 0, and we've now overexposed our image right here. So you don't want to do that. We're going to bring it down, and it was at a really good spot just above 0. And that now we've set what's called our blacks. And with the lights, the highlights here, we want them to be as close to 100 as possible and not go over. Anything that goes over, we're going to lose the data on that. So it's actually pretty good, but we're going to see what we can do, just play with it. And I'm going to bring the highlights away. And now you can see they've moved way too far away down below. We want to bring them up so that the majority of the tops of the colors are just around 100. And so just to give an example of what we've done, we're going to toggle off the color wheel and toggle it back on. You can see, I'm going to zoom in for you, that the color of the streets and the lamps dramatically changed. They're much less yellow and green. They're more accurately colored. So let's come over here to the next image, and that's going to be this window, and we can see on the color wheel here it's very blocky. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to work with the exposures. Let's bring down these shadows more towards 0, and that'll set our blacks. So I'm going to bring the exposure down close to 0 there. And then our highlights are, there's a good amount of distance between 100 and where our highlights are. So we're going to bring up our highlights to be a little closer to 100. And see, we've got here green, blue, the reds are all the way down here. So we're going to use our temperature, and then we're going to move it towards yellow. It's going to bring blue down and green up, and we're going to just choose an even line where they mostly match up together. Really, I'm just playing with this. And we've got this image here, which I can already tell has a snappingly better exposure to it. So if we click on and off, toggle on our wheels here, we'll see the difference in the color. We get a lot more contrast in there. I think it looks really good this way. And for our last clip, this one looks pretty blocky as well. But it seems to me that we can bring down our shadows. We're peaking ever so slightly on the top there, so I'm going to bring that down. And for our color balance, let's see. What we're looking at here is the blue, the green, and the red. Let's see what we can do with that. This separates them more that way. This pushes them a little closer together. Really, there's no even mix. And what you're going to notice, we're now popping over our whites. I'm going to bring this down. And really, that's all we're going to be able to do. But so, just to show the difference in the color here, we're going to toggle on and off again. How washed out and yellow this image was, and how much darker and contrasty, I don't think contrasty is a word, how much more contrast there is in this image. So that's really the basics of color grading. If you have any comments or questions about this video, please leave them below in the comments section. Thank you.